We live in the age of YouTube and the 24-hour news cycle. How else do you think a man who has no major life accomplishments is beating an American hero? We need to create a dynamic moment in this campaign, or we're dead. If you are going to seriously consider the governor of Alaska, you have to call her now.
This is Sarah.
Velkommen til Films TV. På Canal Plus er der den 27. april dansk tv-premiere på filmen Game Change. Den efterhånden legendariske betalingskanal HBO står bag tv-filmen, som er instrueret af Roach, en mand som formentlig er bedst kendt for gakkede komedier, såsom de 3 Austin Powers-film med Mike Myers og Meet the Parents-trilogien med blandt andre Ben Stiller. Både tonemæssigt og indholdsmæssigt er Game Change dog i en helt anden boldgade. Det er en dramatisering af republikanernes præsidentkampagne i 2008, hvor den republikanske senator John McCain som bekendt tabte præsidentvalget til demokraternes Barack Obama. Filmen fokuserer dog endnu mere på McCains vicepræsidentkandidat, den efterhånden legendariske Sarah Palin, som trak overskrifter over hele planeten med sin nærmest foruroligende inkompetence og pinlige optrædener i pressen. Men filmens egentlige omdrejningspunkt er faktisk en fyr ved navn Steve Smith, der i filmen spilles af Woody Harrelson, og som var manden bag republikanernes fejlslagne præsidentkampagne. Smith har i øvrigt selv været ude og skamrose filmens autenticitet. Game Change udspiller sig som en græsk tragedie, hvor vi udmærket godt ved helt fra start, at det ender galt for Smith og company. Håb forvandler sig hurtigt til fortvivlelse, i takt med at Palins uduelighed bliver tydeligere og tydeligere, og Obamas greb om Det Hvide Hus strammes, mens Smiths arbejde smuldrer. Ed Harris er sublim som altid i rollen som John McCain, mens Woody Harrelson leverer endnu en af den slags fænomenale og nuancerede toppræstationer, som på det seneste er blevet hans varemærke. Men Julianne Moore stjæler showet i rollen som Palin. Hun ligner Palin på en prik, hun lyder som hende, og hun har præcis samme mimik. Julianne Moore er hamrende troværdig, og hendes præstation er ikke i nærheden af at ligne en karikatur. Ganske vist er de kreative kræfter bag filmen hovedsageligt demokrater, men Game Change er heldigvis ikke bare en lang latterliggørelse af Palin og company. I stedet er det en ekstremt fascinerende, uhyre velspillet og tankevækkende skildring af USA's politiske magtkamp. Palins pinagtige stupiditet er enormt underholdende i sig selv, men filmen forfalder heldigvis aldrig til en ensidigt farce. Det siger meget om Roach og skuespillernes evner, at man får helt ondt af den sympatiske Smith undervejs, også selvom han kæmpede en brav kamp for at få en grinagtig nikkedukke som Palin valgt. Ja, selv Palin endte man med at føle noget for. En kvinde, der var ude, hvor hun slet ikke kunne bunde, men som blev kastet derud fra den højeste vippe af sit desperate parti. Og ligesom den gængse HBO-produktion er Game Change utrolig godt skruet sammen og enormt flot. 5 stjerner. Husk som sagt, at det er den 27. april, at Canal Plus viser Game Change herhjemme, og Canal Plus var i øvrigt så venlig at arrangere, at vi fik et eksklusivt interview med Roach, som ganske vist primært er kendt for sine komedier, men som med Game Change nu er aktuel med sit andet politisk orienteret tv-drama i kølvandet på Recount fra 2008, som omhandlede det kontroversielle præsidentvalg i år 2000.
You're obviously very much associated with the Austin Powers films and also Meet the Parents, that trilogy as well. But Game Change is your second film about American politics, and you're also in production on another one. What is it that draws you to the subject?
I think it's anxiety for our system, you know, for our process here. I obviously I'm a patriot and I believe in our form of democracy, but I very much think it depends on people continuing to ask the question, how can we do this better? And, you know, how can we make sure that the very, very best leaders are always put forward and can do their best work? And in watching the McCain-Palin campaign at the time, I was just kind of astonished by both the dilemmas that John McCain faced in terms of picking a running mate, but also the very problematic decision to rush the vetting process and not to sort of really dig deep, you know, in his running mate because he needed to do something desperate just to win. And it's that kind of win at all costs thing I was trying to draw attention to.
And the film certainly has some humorous elements, but the tone is primarily serious. But was that also one of the attractions for you, making something that tonally differed a lot from your feature films?
Yes, although every project requires a great story, and a lot of challenges that doing comedy and drama have in common. But I've always been interested in politics, just the question of how should we run our civilization, and also how fragile is our system, and or how durable, and those questions are very, very interesting. They always have been to me. I got into comedy almost by accident because I knew Mike Myers and he asked me to do Austin Powers. But before that, I was writing in more serious genres, and one of them was the political genre.
Mm-hmm. But also, in a country that has a bipartisan political landscape, how do you make a film about American politics without precluding 50% of the population from enjoying it?
Well, what we tried to do primarily was get the story right. In my opinion, when you really dig down into a story, though the outside superficial layers are very polarizing, the deeper you dig, the more you find that we actually have more in common than we think in terms of what we care about and what makes us all anxious. And I think once you strip away the posturing on the outside that is designed to polarize and distinguish candidates from each other, we're all trying to solve the same problems, and we all actually want our country to thrive. But there's something about the kind of gamesmanship and the sort of reality show, cage match fighting, kind of approach to politics that makes people forget that we have so much at stake in common. And so I tried to make the film connect with themes that anyone would care about, no matter what party you were connected to.
Yeah, and that also sort of answers my next question, which is, obviously most Democrats would probably love the film from the get-go, but what would you hope that people take from the film, and not just Republicans, but people on the fence or people who aren't even interested in politics?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people who were the most critical of Sarah Palin in our audience have remarked to us that they've found things to sympathize with that surprised them. And again, I wanted to ask people to go past the media iconography that's projected onto these candidates. And I related with what Sarah Palin went through, though I disagree with her political philosophy. I was concerned about John McCain's decision to rush the vet and sort of thrust her forward, even though she wasn't prepared for the job. But the more I learned about her in particular, the more I actually found her story relatable, and the trauma she found herself, kind of created for herself to some extent in preparing for the debate, for example, was very, sorry to use the same word over and over, but just relatable and understandable. And that's very gratifying to hear people say that they felt they understood a bit more by showing behind the scenes what she went through, what some of the dilemmas John McCain faced. And I was also very interested in the Steve Schmidt character that is played by Woody Harrelson, because I thought, here you have this guy who was in charge of convincing John McCain to put her on the ticket, who months later confesses that he feared he made a mistake. And that's quite a character arc. So, I wanted people to relate with that, almost like an anxiety dream for all of them.
Yeah, Steve Schmidt is a really interesting character. He's practically the hero of the tale. I almost felt like his story sort of plays out like a Greek tragedy, where you just know from the get-go that it's just going to end in tears. What made you interested in making him sort of the focal point of the story?
Well, you put it very well. I saw his character as like a character in a Greek tragedy or a Shakespearean play or something. His soul was at stake throughout the entire story, and when I heard that interview with Anderson Cooper, where he said, I essentially, by saying you can't go back and do it all over again, he was saying that he wished he could. And that was an incredible, it was almost like a whistleblower. And he was the first person to come out publicly and say anything negative about the process from the campaign itself. And I got to know him a little bit through the process. He's a very smart person. I disagree with some of his political philosophy, but I could tell he's a person who was trying to do the right thing from his point of view, and was pushed so hard by the situation, running against Obama, who was so popular and so well-funded, and feeling the pressure from his own party to deliver the victory, and made a choice along with John McCain, or it was really John McCain's decision to do this somewhat desperate thing and risk John McCain's career, risk the party's status, and he would say even risk the country's well-being just to win the race. And that's a great character, but it also raises huge questions about how we pick our leaders in our country.
Like you say, you've gotten to know him, and I also know he's publicly come out and applauded the film's historical accuracy. Now, how much effort and how important was it for you to make sure that it was historically accurate?
It was extremely important to make sure it was accurate, because it happened only a few years ago. People in the public knew an awful lot about what happened and would never have accepted anything that was far from the truth. And we also knew that a number of people who were involved directly in the behind the scenes could easily come out and say where they thought the film did not measure up to the truth. And I feel when you tell the audience you're making a film based on a true story, and you have to deliver that. You have to actually, even though you're doing a dramatization and you have to compress time, and the actors are actors, not the real people, and there's certain license you take, the film must be essentially true. And we very much feel like we got to that place. And other than a few people who worked on the Sarah Palin campaign or on her payroll who said, we don't like it and we haven't seen it, which to me was so incredible that those stories got picked up. The response has been largely that it is very authentic and true.
But Julianne Moore, she, of course, we have to talk about her. She delivers a sensational, seminal performance. She looks and sounds exactly like Palin. Was she always your first choice?
We went through a few names. I was concerned at first about whether her appearance would match, and then I went through a process where I put a few actresses up on the board, and had my Photoshop artists put on the glasses and the hair and the distinctive wardrobe and makeup, and it just suddenly was clear that she would match. She was always my first choice from a performance capability, from just her dramatic chops, if you will, her skills. She's one of the great actresses we have working, and I thought if we could get the physical match right, she would definitely be the first choice. And she stepped so far up. I mean, when we were in the hotel, all of us were staying at this hotel in Baltimore, and I would see her in the lobby with her earbuds in, listening to Sarah Palin's voice read Sarah Palin's books all the time. Like, she didn't go out, she didn't go to dinners or parties. She just did the homework and watched the videos and practiced her dialect and the body language. And I've just never worked with an actress so committed to getting it right, and yet still found her own personal interpretation and connected with her enough, to deliver a layered, deep, not at all superficial performance, and not a caricature. That one of my favorite moments in the film is her as Sarah Palin, Julianne Moore as Sarah Palin, watching Tina Fey as Sarah Palin. And in my mind, I'm always picturing the real Sarah Palin watching both actresses somewhere in that one amazing moment. So that was one of my that's just such a tribute to Julianne Moore's capability. Those moments when she's watching those scenes and you're laughing, with the comedians, but you're also feeling the pain of being that humiliated.
I still remember seeing the very first release photo from the film and remember thinking, okay, there's Ed Harris and there's Sarah Palin, so where's Julianne Moore? It was a really interesting choice for me to give the part of McCain to Ed Harris, who has such an amazing intensity, while McCain always seems so mellow and restrained, and obviously Harris, as always, was fantastic. What made you think of him for the part of McCain?
Well, it's funny you say that that McCain is known as being restrained, because his reputation in private as being a kind of very intense guy who's capable of, very strong outbursts of anger and profanity. I actually have a lot of respect for McCain, especially the old McCain. The McCain from pre-2000 was someone I was very interested in, but I wanted someone who could capture the kind of behind the scenes outbursts in a very credible way, and still be very likable and relate to, as you say, the kind of tragic dilemmas that he was faced with, the kind of choices that a character makes in a Shakespearean play, where he has to literally decide if he'll risk the country's well-being to take this person on, and the weight of that and the consequences, and also the kind of strange detachment that McCain got to in the middle of the campaign when he started realizing that she was going to be a problem and would not step up and kind of face her and ask her to be more on the team and more cooperative, and to this day has never said a negative thing about her, has never admitted that there was any issue with rushing the vet, so I needed an actor, and this is the case, by the way, with all three actors. I cast the three of my absolute favorite actors who I would watch do anything and I would relate with doing anything to play these characters, which is the opposite of trying to make some kind of a bit of propaganda or a hit piece against them, because I wanted people to actually connect with them and like aspects of them, and then also be willing to go into the darker places where the tough choices were being made. And so Ed was, for me, Ed and Woody Harrelson as Steve Schmidt, who was, when I saw that interview that he did that frames the film, that's the bookending of the film with Anderson Cooper, I just couldn't imagine a more compelling story, a real anxiety dream about someone who seemed to want to do what was right and got caught in that predicament and sort of engineered his own downfall in a way by the end of the story. And what an incredible set of actors I got to work with to tell that story.
Very, very briefly, very final question. Is there any news on Austin Powers 4? Will it happen? We talk about it. I've talked to Mike a little more often lately, so there's always a possibility, but it's kind of up to him and when he's ready. There is no news really, though, about any scheduling of it or commitment to making it. We've been talking about it for all these years, and I hope it happens. I love the characters. I particularly love the idea of doing something that focuses a little more on Dr. Evil, who I always thought was a great character. But I can't say that there's anything definite about whether it's going to go forward or not.
Husk, at du kan finde alle vores tidligere Films TV-udsendelser på Films under Films TV-fanebladet, og også på videovideo.dk, i iTunes og via vores gratis video-app.